first legit victory Monday, even though the Bucs played on Thursday. We're still calling this a victory Monday.
Oh, yeah. When you win on a Thursday, it doesn't matter. That win carries all the way through until Monday to the week reset. So, yeah, victory Monday here. Bucs win in exciting fashion. Finally, a kicker you can rely on. We saw it last year. You give a minute, 24 seconds to Tom Brady with one timeout. That's an eternity. And, he came through, marched the team right down the field, and kicked the ball through. I know you were happy with that because you called it minutes before it happened.
I did.
SR called it in the group chat. Suckup's going to win this game. What do you know? SR's been doing this for a long time, so you got to trust him when he says stuff like that.
Well, JC, we got a sneak preview of Bucs' upcoming opponents. And this was really cool because here in the Tampa market, we saw pretty much all of the Buccaneers' opponents play yesterday on local television here. You have got DirecTV. I guess you got the Red Zone going. I don't have that, but I was fortunate because I got to see the Falcons play the Eagles. I got to see Patriots and Dolphins. Those games are back-to-back following the Bucs Week 2 game against the Falcons. Then the Saints and the Packers. The Bucs don't play the Packers this year. It'd be great if they could because they looked awful. But they will be playing the Saints on Halloween. And then last night, the Sunday night game, the Bucs will be playing the Rams in Week 3. And, of course, they're going to also be playing the Chicago Bears. So it's great to get a sneak peek at all of those teams. Now, Week 1, got to be careful, right? Because the Buccaneers, JC, they've won 2 Super Bowls in 2002 and in 2020, and they lost the season opener in both of those games to the Saints. So sometimes Week 1 doesn't really matter, but we do have a couple of clues that we can possibly take away from that, and we're going to get into that on this show today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you watch some of those games. If you don't have Red Zone or DirecTV or whatever, like you said, you were fortunate enough to get a glimpse of almost all the Buccaneers' opponents to start that first half of the season, which was really telling, especially when you saw some of the performances that were going on, some of the lack of performances, if you want to call it that. So it's going to be nice to be able to kind of preview that. Obviously, we go into the Falcons this upcoming week, and to see what Jalen Hurts, without getting too far into it, because we'll save that for a little bit, too far into it, what Jalen Hurts was able to do to this Falcons defense, which we know is still pretty bad, even though they've tried to improve it over the years. You just got to be, very excited about what potentially the Bucs could be able to do getting after Matt Ryan.
Well, JC, we're also really excited because we start the show off with our Celsius promos, and why not? Because Celsius is an absolutely fantastic energy drink, and the best part about Celsius, JC, is it's got essential energy, accelerates your metabolism, and there's no sugar in it. There's no preservative, so there's no sugar crash. So you get energy that sustains you throughout the day, and you don't have that crash that you have with some other energy drinks. But maybe the best part about Celsius, and as you can see, I'm wearing my Celsius shirt today. Ooh, get a little shot of that. There we go. Thanks to them. Good friends at Celsius. But Celsius just signed a renewal agreement with Pewter Reports to be our exclusive energy drink and the exclusive title sponsor of the Pewter Report podcasts and the Pewter Report Game Day podcasts through 2022. So we really appreciate Celsius' support. And really thanks to you guys out there in Pewter Nation, because you've been buying all of the Celsius drinks that we've been promoting. And I think you're seeing some of the benefits too, right? Because you're reordering and you're trying new flavors and all of that. So it's been awesome to see. But here's the thing. We're not just talking about Celsius, because they also have these amazing Celsius energy bars. And these are protein bars. They come in 2 flavors, white chocolate, cookies and cream, and salted caramel peanut crunch. These are both tremendously delicious flavors. Now, I've had a lot of protein bars before, JC. They taste like cardboard, sawdust. I mean, they taste awful, right? But the great thing about these, well, let's not name any names, but the thing is that these bars here, they taste like candy bars, and I'm not kidding. If you don't believe me, try them yourself. And they've got 20 grams of protein, only 2 grams of sugar, so they're about as healthy as you can get for some protein bars that are going to give you some energy throughout the day. Now, here's the best part about this. In our YouTube description, we've got a link where you can get fast bars made by Celsius for 20% off when you order on Amazon. Now, I did this right around the last time I did this promotion. I did this right around the start of school, back to school time. Got them for my kids because they're looking for something to get you throughout the day and get some energy and some protein. And it's a great thing to grab in the morning on the way out the door. Well, I'm glad that they're having this promo again because I'm literally out now. I think I'm down to like 2 bars left. My kids and myself have rolled through them. So they taste great, and they give you the protein that you need to get you through the day, only 2 grams of sugar. So check the link on our YouTube page, Pewter Reports TV on YouTube, and click on that and save 20% off. And we'll also have that on our Twitter page in a little bit too. But it's a great promo. So we want to thank our great friends at Celsius and Fast Energy Bars for all of the great promotions. So
absolutely. And it's tough, Scott. You mentioned, with sharing with your kids and stuff. I came out the other day and my wife had a Celsius. I'm like, what are you doing with my Celsius? I only have 3 left. So, and I saw someone else said, their wife was on a Zoom meeting or something like that, and everyone was asking about it. Literally, once someone has a sip of it, sees it,
there you go,
spreads
right
like
there, Richie.
wildfire.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Well, listen, we got some news out of the Advent Health Training Center today with a bit of a roster move here, JC. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, I mean, Sean Murphy-Bunting obviously went down with an elbow injury, still waiting on MRI results. X-rays came back negative. It looks to be a dislocated elbow. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I'm not the team doctor. I don't know for sure. Prognosis, maybe 1 to 2, possibly 3 games. Again, we'll know more as soon as we talk to Bruce coming up tomorrow. But in a move they made to kind of shore up that secondary, just in case they need it, they signed cornerback Pierre Desir. Came into the league in 2014. He has 44 starts to his career, 8 interceptions, with one of them returned for a touchdown, 42 pass deflections. This is a guy who's great in the locker room as well. So the good news about having a guy like that is he's experienced. And we saw them make the same move last year with Ross Cockrell in the middle of the season. The guy who had 44 starts, a couple of them coming against the Buccaneers, that London game with a pick 6. But you bring in a guy who's got experience like that on the practice squad, and if you need to elevate him, hopefully it plays dividends. It's covering all bases just in case SMB is not able to go sooner rather than later. It gives you another body. D. Delaney, you've been great. We appreciate everything you've done for us. But at the same time, we need a guy who's played in the league and who's played at a high level. And this is a guy like Pierre Desir who has done that. So a great roster move. We'll see what happens if he gets elevated, if he's just there. But I would look to see if he's elevated if there is a real injury to SMB.
Yeah, and also at the same time, he played under Todd Bowles, didn't he? The Jets.
He played with the Jets.
Maybe he did
2 times with the Jets.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of the case there with him is the familiarity with Bowles' scheme.
Yeah, played with Cleveland, San Diego. Let's see, the Giants, Indianapolis, Baltimore, the Jets. So yeah, he's been around the league.
Yeah, I just put the link for that 20% off the Fast Bar on Amazon here in our chat, so you can check that out. So, well, listen, JC, let's get to the meat of today's topic, which is looking at these opponents for the Buccaneers. We're not going to spend a whole bunch of time on every one. We're going to give you kind of a thumbnail sketch of our initial impressions on all these teams that the Buccaneers played. Of course, you get the Falcons there. Mike Evans giving the AJ Terrell a big forearm shiver to the throat right there. And boy, they did that in that last game. What was the final score? 44-17 or 21, something like that. It was pretty rough going for the Falcons. That first game in Atlanta was tight. They were up 17-0, and then all of a sudden the Bucs it came storming back, scored 31 points in the second half to beat Atlanta 31-27.
Yeah, Brady was full Jedi.
He did, yeah, and Devin White did too, really closing out the game with a couple sacks, and was just a monster for the Buccaneers in that game. And that was quite the deflator right there for the Raheem Morris-led Buccaneers. And then you've got, let me get the final score there because I want to give us some good information when it comes to the Bucs-Falcons game. But it was a blowout in Tampa. I know the Bucs scored 44, and they allowed 27. Okay, I said 17. 44 to 27.
Garbage time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it didn't need to be. The Bucs outscored them 21-7 in the fourth quarter. That was a game where, of course, Mike Evans set the record with 1,000 yards. All of a sudden, boom, he hurt his knee. It was not as serious as it looked. And we saw Antonio Brown go off with 11 catches, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, playing more time in that game for the injured Mike Evans. But I was not impressed with what I saw yesterday. JC, when I was looking at the Atlanta Falcons game with a keen eye, because they're coming up on deck at 4:05 here in Tampa on Sunday. So they lost 32-6 to Philadelphia. What were some of your initial impressions from that game?
Blocking. I mean, their offensive line was just terrible. The amount of times that they were able to get pressure on Matt Ryan, and we know they lost a big weapon in Julio Jones. Calvin Ridley is the guy that needs to step up there. But if you can't give him time to operate, you saw that. Kyle Pitts, he had a couple of good plays, a third down conversion, but at the same time, he's a guy as well that you can tell he's a rookie and he's going to take some time to get there. The defense still horrid, still terrible. I think they had, only 1 sack on the day and no turnovers on Jalen Hurts, who was a rookie who looked like a seasoned vet. I mean, this guy looked amazing, tossing the ball all over the place. And he's only had, I think this was his 5th career start. So, for the most part, defense really looks bad still for that Atlanta Falcons team, obviously giving up 32 points. And then the offensive line, man, they cannot block. They have a pretty good left tackle, but other than that, the rest of the line is just very, very poor.
Yeah, when I looked at this game, it was interesting, right? Because you saw what the Falcons wanted to do. They wanted to run the ball, and for all intents and purposes, they ran the ball. But the problem is they fell behind, and so they generated 260 total yards. 124 yards on the ground. I thought the biggest surprise was Patterson running the ball. Cordero Patterson, who started off as a wide receiver. He's one of the best kick returners in league history, but he's running the ball quite a bit. But Matt Ryan, wow, 136-yard passing. And his longest play was an 18-yard throw and catch to Kyle Pitts, the rookie, who underwhelmed in his first NFL game, 4 catches, 31 yards. JC, I saw the Falcons come out in a lot of 12 and 13 and 22 personnel. That's 2 backs for the 22. That's 2 tight ends for the 12 and 3 tight end sets. Arthur Smith loves him some tight ends, but it didn't really work out yesterday.
No, I mean, if you're going to roll those looks out for the Bucs, they're going to be licking their chops because they're going to be able to get. I mean, they should be able to get after it. 124 rushing yards against the Eagles. I mean, cut that in half at least when they go up against the Bucs. Who just held Ezekiel Elliott to 33, so they're not going to be able to get the running game going here either. And cornerback is going to be an interesting matchup. How Matt Ryan goes. Carlton Davis. I mean, no worries on him on Ridley, but Justin Gage, obviously, how he does against Jamel Dean and what they do with Ross Cockrell. I'm sure they're gonna game plan that if SMB cannot go. So, but other than that, I mean, pass rushers should be just pinning their ears back and getting after him.
Here's some Pro Football Focus numbers for you guys. McGarry, the right tackle, had a 39.7 grade in pass protection. Now, you think that's really bad. Well, Hennessy, the center, had a 26.2 pass block grade. Okay. If you think that's bad, Jalen Mayfield had a 1.4 grade. I've never seen a grade that low. 1.4 in pass protection. He gave up 8 pressures. He gave up 8 pressures and 2 sacks, and was just awful. So, can they run block? Yeah, they can run block a little bit. But here's the deal when it comes to Falcons. If you get up on them, they can't catch up. They're not built to catch up. They're not a quick strike offense by any means. So what I look for Tampa to do is come out, put a bunch of points on the board, get out ahead of time, and this should be the easy victory that a lot of people, myself included, kind of expected from the Bucs on Thursday night, and that season opener against the Cowboys. Now, the problem is when you have turnovers, you kind of let the other team back in it. That's what happened with with Dallas, I think the Buccaneers probably could have and should have won that game like 38-20.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to kind of be how this game is. Although I don't see the Falcons getting 20 points on the Bucs. Do you?
I don't. One thing I am a little worried about is the running game didn't get going last week against a rookie, third-round rookie, and some journeyman defensive tackles. Well, Grady Jarrett.
Yeah, but they didn't try though. Really, JC, they really didn't try.
They didn't, but at the same time, I mean, it's going to be a lot hard. You need to establish the run at some point, right?
I agree.
And I don't know if they're going to be able to do it this week against a Grady Jarrett. And who's the other guy they have? Man, on the tip of my tongue.
Do you have the defensive tackle?
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, the Tyler Davidson, the nose tackle. Then they got Jonathan Bullard.
Yeah.
On the other side, they kind of play a 3-4, but they have like a 4-man front, kind of like what the Bucs do to a degree.
Yeah. Him and Marlon Davidson, I mean, that's going to be a tough front to run against. So,
yeah.
That kind of worries me getting the run started because we know how effective this team is off play action. I mean, Todd Bowles will deny it, pre-snap motion, play action. None of it really changes and none of it works. But, that's really, how Tom is able to just manipulate and move the ball wherever the heck he wants. Not that he can't do it without it, but I'm looking for them to establish the run, especially against good defenses like the Rams, like the Patriots, like the Dolphins, all coming up have good defensive fronts. So this game, I think, is going to be hard for. That's what I'm really looking for. But through the air, I have no doubt they're going to be able to move the ball at will.
Yeah.
Everyone's worried and freaking out about Mike Evans, and is Mike Evans going to get 1,000 yards?
I think he's going to have his way with AJ Terrell.
Yeah. Did he disappear? Where was he? Yeah. He's going to be fine, I think. Yeah.
But there's going to be some weeks, folks, where Mike just doesn't light up a stat sheet. There's going to be weeks where Antonio Brown doesn't. There's going to be weeks where Gronk doesn't. There's only one ball, right? That's the thing. So, and Tom Brady's going to look for the most favorable matchups, and usually he'll do that before the play even starts. He'll identify the coverage. He'll identify the matchup he wants. That's probably where he's going to go with the ball. So that's just how it is. I know the fantasy football crowd freaks out a bit, but it's like, listen, Mike's still going to get his 1,000 yards as long as he's healthy. It's happened every year. So I wouldn't worry about that. I'm not worried that this is a trap game prior to the Rams and then the Pats, because this is a division game, right? This is a division game, and I don't think that they're going to overlook the Falcons at all.
No. Division games are always tricky. You never know. Any given Sunday, I think, applies more to division games than any other games against lesser opponents because they can. Well, if you're the Bucs, Thursday night games too, I guess. But you never know what kind of game. They know you for the most part. Obviously, they're coming in new coach, new system, so it gives them a little bit. The Bucs a little bit more of an advantage. Being the better team than it does the Falcons, even though they're a new team to the Bucs, they still just don't have the thing. I know a lot of people are freaking out about the game plan in the secondary. What do you think about the game plan that they ran against the Dallas? You think there's going to be changes made to it? I definitely think Bowles isn't just going to sit there, rest on his laurels and say, okay, we got torn apart. Bruce called me out pretty much in the pregame saying, they're going to test us on the outside and they're going to test us with the screen game.
I think too, because they're going to be playing a very similar type of attack with the Rams coming up in 2 weeks, that there will be some changes. It'll be interesting to see this week how Ross Cockrell plays, right? Because you can't just say this is what we're going to play. You got to play to your personnel. Now they have Ross Cockrell in there, as opposed to Sean Murphy-Bunting. Murphy-Bunting is faster. I think Ross Cockrell might even be better in some instances within that 10 to 15 yards near the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Although that's an area that Sean Murphy-Bunting made gains. We saw his interception picking off a pass in New Orleans, like in that type of situation. But I think where Sean Murphy-Bunting excels is down the field with his speed. We saw Amari Cooper pull away from Ross Cockrell and score that touchdown, whereas Sean Murphy-Bunting had the speed to get in front of Alan Lazard and pick off that pass in Green Bay that was 15, 20 yards down the field. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to play them. But you go back in last year, now granted it was Jared Goff. We'll get to the Rams in a second. But when you look at Jared Goff threw for almost 400 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Bucs in that 27-24 win. So they got to do something different if they want to change the outcome, right?
Yeah, especially when you look at Van Jefferson now becoming a viable threat. I mean, I've liked the kid since he was
Yeah.
drafted last year, and he came out. I think it was 4 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown,
Yeah.
80 some odd yards. So now you have to watch out for him as that deep speed threat to
Yeah.
go along with Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee and Robert
Right.
Woods. So
Well, let's put the nail on the coffin for the Falcons real quick too.
yeah.
It's like I think the defense didn't really stand up. I thought Deion Jones, even though he had 11 tackles, he's their best defender. They've got some new faces in the secondary. This is a different team. Arthur Smith has kind of turned over that roster to a degree with the exodus of Dan Quinn and Raheem Morris, and that defense had 1 sack and no turnovers yesterday. I thought it was very kind of a lifeless defense. They were playing at home, and I did not see anything out of Atlanta that impressed me. Now, are we going to see some improvement from them this week? I certainly would expect that, but I don't think they're going to be a match for the Buccaneers. But what is a great match for your Sunday is Pewter pregame, and that's going to take place right here on Pewter Report TV, also on pewterreport.com. John Ledyard and Casey Hudson will be headlining the show, and with special guests, myself, JC Allen, Matt Matera, the Pewter Report staff will be on there for 1 hour on Sunday at 3 o'clock. We'll have to launch a Pewter pregame followed by Pewter game day, and that's going to be John and Paul Adwell. He returns this week to watch the game with you guys and break down all the action, give some insights, some analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. It's a great compliment to you watching the game at home. And so check out Pewter Game Day again. That's going to follow Pewter pregame. And then, of course, we'll have the Pewter Report postgame podcast about 45 minutes at the end of the game. So JC, we've got another we had a fantastic debut, really, for the regular season debut for Pewter pregame and Pewter Game Day. Looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah, it was awesome. Being on site, on location with John and Casey, and then coming over to Matt, who was at the stadium, then switching over to us, having that special guest come in to break down Dallas right before the game.
Yeah.
I leading right into not only the game but our live in-game analysis. It was awesome to take part of, and then right into the post game. I mean, it's all the
wall-to-wall
Bucs
coverage,
content,
right?
Yeah, all the Bucs content you could want in one game setting. So it was amazing, and I look forward to seeing it grow, seeing more people. You guys telling more people about it and getting more involved. Being able to get your comments, reactions, thoughts. It was a lot of fun. I had a blast.
It was, and the other thing too is we're not going to be on location at Whiskey Wings this week, but we will later on in the season. So look out for that. But we want to make sure that you subscribe to our Pewter Report YouTube channel. Hit the like button for those videos. We greatly appreciate that. When it comes to the next opponent, well, actually, here let's do everyone a favor and let them know where they can get the absolute best golf gear, and that, of course, is at livinggolflife.com. Now, if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, you see those amazing red, white, and blue Golf Life polos, along with that awesome hat, and you've seen Matt and John wear those on the Pewter Report podcast. JC, I'm still waiting for mine. Have you got your Living Golf Life gear yet, or Matt and John hoarding it all?
I think they're hoarding it all. I just want a hat. I'm a hat guy, so give me a hat. I'll be fine. Maybe a couple golf balls. Let's hit the links and let's hit the deep ball, because that's definitely something that the Atlanta Falcons couldn't do last week.
That's true.
The Living Golf Life, those golf balls, you nail them deep down the range. So I'm all about some of that. Look at the logo too. It's just
it's a great looking logo. And then what I like about it is it's not Titleist, it's not Callaway. Instead of repping a brand, right? It's all about repping the sport itself, right? Because that's what they're all about, is Living Golf Life. Check out the website, livinggolflife.com. Give them a follow on @livinggolflife on Instagram. They'd appreciate that. And again, they've got some great merchandise that you can buy to celebrate your love of golf on livinggolflife.com. So JC, as we roll on, okay, let's get to the Rams, right? We're looking at the Rams on the 26th. That's going to be out in LA in their spaceship of a stadium. Now, they won 34-13 against the Bears last night and looked really good in doing it.
Yes.
Give me your thoughts on what you saw from the Rams in week 3.
talk about a team that does have a deep ball. The Rams, they look good. They look like out of the NFC, probably the biggest challenge to the Bucs. And that was a lot of things that people were talking about prior to the season. Matt Stafford, did he make them a challenger? You look at Green Bay, obviously, talk about them, but they don't look like they're anywhere near the type of level they should be coming in. And then the 49ers, who let the Rams almost come back. I mean, the Lions come back and win. And it really looks like the Rams are going to pull away of that division. And they can do it through the air with Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, really getting the most out of him. 386 yards, really efficient as well. 21 yards through the air, 20 for 26 with 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what he was looking for. Goff, not the most consistent, and barring injury, he was doing some rollouts and some running and some moving that we haven't seen for a while. So Stafford looks really good in that offense, and it's going to come down to the defense, and the defense is pretty good too with with the guys they got on there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think the one thing about Matt Stafford is he really brings kind of like a sense of big playability to that Rams offense. Jared Goff was not the downfield threat that Matt Stafford is, and you saw that on display with that bomb that he threw to Van Jefferson, 67 yards. Jefferson completed, or I should say, finished with 2 catches, 80 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp was doing Cooper Kupp things, 7 catches, 108 yards and a touchdown. He also had a 56-yard catch. So that's the element that Matt Stafford brings, the ability to go downtown as well as spread you out horizontally with those quick wide receiver screens, tight end screens, the quick smoke routes to the outside to get the ball into Kupp's hands, Jefferson's hands, Robert Woods' hands, to the backs and the tight ends out of the backfield. So I was really impressed with the dimension that he brings. And as they said on the broadcast, Sean McVay wants a partner, and that's exactly what Matt Stafford is a guy that can pull the trigger and really threaten every blade of grass in the field, from the short underneath stuff to the flats to down the field. And I think that's where you'd like to have your secondary at full strength for the Rams game. That's not going to be, because Sean Murphy-Bunting is going to be out. But I'm curious as to see how Todd Bowles is going to attack this Rams defense. I think that they're going to have to play some cover 2, some 2-man under. I think they got to keep 2 safeties deep, or this could be like the Kansas City game in that first quarter back in Week 12, where if you're playing one-on-one, they've got some guys, maybe not as fast as Tyreek Hill, but they've got some guys that can get down the field. Without safety up over the top, you could be giving up a quick strike.
Yeah, and that's the thing you definitely have to prepare against. So, it's going to come down to scheme and play calling from Todd Bowles and how he wants to, dive up into this playbook and what he can call. And you can't be too aggressive against a team that will definitely, make you pay for it. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the play calling is going to be like, what the scheme is going to be like that he implements, for all the reasons you listed. But one thing I found interesting was, again, and I talked about this against the Falcons, is getting the run started. They let Montgomery get over 100 yards.
They did.
And you're talking about Aaron Donald and Floyd and some really good pass rushers and run defenders on that team. So that was kind of surprising to me. Aaron Donald still got out to the quarterback. But remember, the last couple of times he's played the Bucs, last year they had stat list.
Well, that's right.
They've got the big name guys. Jalen Ramsey will follow Mike Evans around, but this year you've got a guy like Antonio Brown who's fully, seasoned in the playbook, and they're going to be able to take advantage of some of those mismatches on offense with Brown and Godwin and Rob Gronkowski for sure. But we're still 2 weeks away, so it's hard to really preview what the matchup could look like.
Right.
But just to take a quick glance at what they were able to accomplish, and what they could look like, they're definitely a threat. They're definitely a contender, and having to go all the way to the West Coast, that's going to be a tough trip for the Bucs.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is Justin Hollins had 2 sacks, and he was a recent draft pick out of Oregon, and he had 2 sacks, and I think anytime you're playing with Aaron Donald, it's great because you get to feed too, right? All the attention goes to number 99, but we saw Donald get a sack, but Hollins actually had 2. They still have Leonard Floyd, so they've got enough guys that can get after the passer. And when you look at what the Rams were able to do defensively, I thought it was pretty sound. That was Raheem Morris's first game as the defensive coordinator. Remember, he went from the Falcons, so he knows the Bucs extremely well, right? It's not just the fact that the Rams played the Bucs once last year. That really doesn't matter because Raheem actually played them twice because he was the Falcons coach. Now, it didn't end up too well, right? Because they scored 31 points and then 44. So it'll be interesting to see with much better personnel, right? I mean, as good as Grady Jarrett is, he's not Aaron Donald, right? Yeah. And you've got A.J. Terrell in Atlanta maybe as your top corner, but then you've got Jalen Ramsey, one of the best, as your top corner there. So I think that Raheem, not that he's going from the outhouse to the penthouse, but he's certainly leveling up, right, with the Rams personnel.
Yeah, the one thing too, it's hard to look at because it was Andy Dalton, I mean, it wasn't a quarterback of significance that faced him as well. Tom Brady is light years better than Andy Dalton is. So, and especially the personnel as well. So I think it's going to be a really compelling, interesting game.
I think it's going to be a great game. Can't wait to get to it.
Barring any injuries that happened prior to on either side of the ball, even if Sean Murphy Bunting misses this game, I think the Bucs still have the personnel to match up against them, depending on what coverage they play and what scheme they dial up. But I think this could be one of the best games of the year for the Bucs.
Yeah, I do too. It's certainly the most anticipated one, I think, early on. Now, the great thing is it's only Monday. We've got Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That's when the Bucs are practicing this week. So we're going to have plenty more Bucs-Falcons talk a little bit later in the week. So we just want to take advantage of the fact that we saw these games yesterday and get our first initial impression of what we saw. So in case you're just joining us here on Monday's Pewter Report podcast, that's what we're talking about today, the sneak preview of the Bucs' upcoming opponents. So let's take a look at this other team. JC, do you happen to know anything about the New England Patriots as the Bucs start October on Sunday night against Bill Belichick and Tom Brady's and Rob Gronkowski's former team?
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I can kind of sense by your accent you might know a little bit about the Pats.
Yeah, the Pats. These guys are. What can I say? Mac Jones looked really good in his start. I believe he was the first quarterback in NFL history to throw over for 30 yards and have over a 70% completion rate. Yeah. The Pats, frankly, should have won this game.
There's no doubt. And you hold on, you're not being a homer by saying that. I'm telling you right now, I watched the game, and you're exactly right. They gave this game away because both running backs, Damian Harris and Stevenson, coughed up the ball. And that was unfortunate. But those 2 fumbles were really detrimental because they outgained the Dolphins 393 yards to 259. The Patriots were an impressive 11 of 16 on third down. Harris ran for 100 yards. And Mac Jones, you said, had quite a day.
Yeah, I mean, then you look at penalties as well. Very uncharacteristic for a Patriots team to have that many penalties. I think it was 8 for 4. It was 86 yards in penalties. I know that. 4 of them were personal fouls. So that's, you've got to clean up those mistakes. And that's something that, Belichick going into the meeting room is going to say turnovers. We can't have that. We're beating ourselves. Penalties. We can't have that. We're beating ourselves. We're on to the Jets, which, it's a little bit better of a matchup for them. This, I think they should be able to wipe the floor with them. But, this team, this defense as well, they look really sharp. I think they are missing a little bit of Stephon Gilmore, just, former defensive player of the year. Any team might be missing him. But they're a team that's coming together first time. Matt Judon looks really impressive in that system and has throughout the entire preseason. The hit he laid out on Tua, the pressure that forced the interception. I think they're going to be able to. And remember, the Bucs are coming off a game against the Rams in LA than coming back home, traveling up to New England, where it's going to be a sold-out crowd, raucous. It shouldn't be too cold because it's October, but it won't be as nice as it is down here in Tampa, I can tell you that.
Right.
But it's going to be a difficult game for them. And I know, you can say the Pats aren't on the same level talent-wise, but they have a really solid defense. They have a really solid running game. And I know the Bucs have,
what's crazy too is, I mean, here's the thing. It's Bill Belichick knows Tom Brady inside and out, and Rob Gronkowski too, right? So it's like they know their characteristics. They know what they like to do best. And the one thing that makes Bill Belichick excellent, I mean, just bar none, is the Patriots will take away what you want to do and what you do best. Now, the problem is when you're talking about Tampa Bay's offense, what are you going to take away? Because there's just so many weapons there that might present a problem for the Patriots. When you look at the Dolphins roster, they didn't have as much, and we'll kind of transition to the Dolphins, JC, because when you look at the schedule, they play the Miami Dolphins at home right after they come home from New England on that Sunday night game. We're talking about the same game. Miami won 17-16, but really they won because of those two late turnovers in the game. I think the Patriots really outplayed them, but we did see some things that were good out of Tua, did we not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tua, he had some poise in there, made some great throws. Yeah.
He showed some growth. I'm not a huge Tua fan. Listen, this guy's not Kyler Murray, not yet by any means, but I was not high on him when he first came out. I didn't think he was worth the first-round draft pick, but he looked competent and got the win yesterday. He did enough to win. It wasn't dynamic, but I thought he was better than he was the previous year. And then you look at Jalen Waddle. Interesting because it was a really good day for former Alabama guys, right? Because you had Mac Jones getting his first touchdown pass. Tua, who's a year older, he came out in the draft this previous year, got a win, and Waddle and Devontae Smith, who were in the same Alabama wide receiving core last year and are both first-round picks this year, they both got their first touchdowns. And we'll get to Devontae Smith with the Eagles in just a minute, but Waddle, I thought, had a pretty good game for his initial career start. 4 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. Parker really led the day with 4 catches for 81 yards. And when you look at it, Gaskin, 49 yards on the ground. I don't know if it was because they couldn't run the ball or didn't commit to it enough against the Patriots, but the Dolphins defense forced 2 fumbles, but they didn't have any sacks, no interceptions. So it really wasn't that splash-worthy type of performance that maybe you would expect with Brian Flores going up against a young rookie quarterback in Mac Jones. And I think that's kind of worth noting. A lot of people would sit there and say, oh, gosh, Todd Bowles' defense, they're going to get after Mac Jones. He's a rookie quarterback. Well, Mac Jones didn't get sacked, and he didn't throw any interceptions in his first debut. And Brian Flores is a defensive-minded coach and got some playmakers in that Dolphins defense, and it never really materialized that way. So sometimes you can't look at a rookie quarterback and say, well, that's an automatic, shitty game for the rookie just because he's playing a good defense like Tampa Bay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to go back to Jalen Waddle, I think he's going to be the best wide receiver out of this draft class when everything's said and done. He just looked outstanding out there. Tua, you got to give it to him. The Miami's offensive line wasn't great. And as you mentioned, the running game, the Patriots spent significant resources in shoring up that defensive tackle spot, even through the draft of Christian Barmore. I know I wasn't high on him, and I know Warren Sapp wasn't high on him.
I wasn't high on him either.
But they did bring in a few defensive tackles, one from the Jets, one from the Dolphins. So, I could see that being part of the answer to Gaskin. But Tua's he's gonna continue getting better. The defense was really something that I thought was gonna show up a little bit more, as you said, against a guy like Mac Jones, rookie quarterback, first start. The 2 forced fumbles were great. One of those, I think, was more on the running back than it was on the defense actually making a play. And, some of the throws that Mac Jones was making against all-pro cornerbacks, and Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, it was kind of, if you're a Miami fan, you got to be like, oh, what is this? Is a rookie quarterback that he's completing these passes on. So
right, exactly. All right, let's move on, shall we, to our next game that we're going to talk about, which is after the Miami game on the 10th. We're looking at the 14th. That's a short week going to Philadelphia. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if the Eagles looked really, really good or if they just are okay and it was just the Falcons that looked really, really bad. But I mean, Philadelphia rolled into the ATL and just simply outclassed them on offense and defense. It was a beatdown, 32-6 against the Falcons. And JC, when you look at the play of Jalen Hurts, I was higher on Hurts than I was on Tua. And maybe that's the Big 12 in me. I saw what he did, not just at Alabama, but then when he went to Oklahoma, you know, this kid has got poise. He is a playmaker. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. I mean, he is deadly. I think that this guy he's surprised me with how quickly he's, I guess, ascended. But you can kind of see why they got rid of Carson Wentz because Jalen Hurts can flat out play.
Yeah, this is a game that has scared me since I saw it on the schedule. And if you've been watching the Pewter Report podcast, you have heard me say multiple times that I am circling this Eagles game. And now, after this performance, it is circled and highlighted because this is a game that scares me. Not only is it a dreaded Thursday night game for the Buccaneers, it's coming off what should be three really tough defenses going against the Rams, going against the Patriots, and going against the Dolphins. I have no doubt that those defenses will turn it around and be in good shape by the time the Bucs play them. Everyone's going to step up. You're going to get their best game, even though the coaching staff think and the players think they got their best shot last year. Those three defenses are going to be tough. They're going to be physical, and they're going to do stuff to try to take away players on this team and get them out of their rhythm. And then you have the Eagles on a Thursday night going up to Philly. And if Jalen Hurts and the offense and defense can continue to look like this throughout their next few games, this could be a loss. This could be one of those trap game. I mean, people want to talk about a trap game. This is a game that I think could definitely hand the Bucs, their first or second loss of the season, depending on how it shakes out. I hate Thursday games. For this reason,
the Bucs do too.
It's really. I mean, who really thought the
trying to
Bears
remember the last time the Bucs won on Thursday night. I can't remember.
It wasn't last year because it was the Bears, and the year prior was the Giants. So,
the Giants wasn't on Thursday night. Giants was on Monday night last year.
No, the year prior.
The year before that was the Matt Gay. That was 2019. That wasn't on Thursday. That was on Sunday.
Oh, I thought it was not Thursday night. Yeah. I don't know. They played the Giants 5 times in the last 4 years, and I think they get them again next year too. It's just crazy how many times they play this Giants squad.
Right.
All the dates.
Well, I'll say this. Cordell Patterson started off pretty hot against this Eagles defense. Then they really shut him down, and then not just that, but I mean they really got after Matt Ryan. I mean they shredded that Falcons offensive line. It was not even funny. So when you look at this Eagles defense, they held Atlanta to 3 of 14 on third downs, 260 yards. They outgained them 434 yards to 260. Hurts went off, as JC was telling you, 27 of 35, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also rushed 7 times for 62 yards. And JC, those weren't all scrambles. Some of those were designed QB runs, and that really gave Atlanta some problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you combine his rushing ability with, having a back like Sanders there as well. It really gives you a two-headed rushing attack between the two, and really confuses and can be kind of a mismatch against some defenses as well. We all know how effective a dual threat quarterback can be.
It's not just scrambling. They'll call some RPOs and then he'll just take off with the ball, and then there's just some quarterback run game reads, and so you wonder in the NFL. I mean, and Jalen's a big, strong guy, not tall, but he's thick, well put together. You just wonder how those hits will accumulate during the season, and whether he'll be able to throw the ball and still be efficient in this offense after taking a pounding for 17 games. But here we are. Week 1, and he looked dazzling. Now,
Yeah.
it's not just Sanders, 74 yards on the ground for Sanders. Kenneth Gainwell, who is one of my draft crushes out of Memphis,
Yes.
9 carries, 37 yards, scored his first touchdown. And listen, the receivers too. Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, the rookie, 6 catches, 71 yards in his first touchdown. We talked about Jalen Waddle scoring a touchdown. Well, it's the same thing that happened with the other Alabama wide receiver that won in the first round. And Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor from the draft 2 years ago, 6 catches, 49 yards and a touchdown. I don't know if you saw it, but Dallas Goedert, wow, what a extended crab in the end zone.
Yeah.
4 catches, 42 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And that's what you're looking for. You have the young guy two young guys stepping up to grow with Jalen Hurts, and a young tight end who's, he's in his contract year, but, now starting to get that full opportunity. Zach Ertz has always been there, and he's had some injury issues himself. But, it gives Jalen Hurts, if these guys continue to play at that level, it gives them a bevy of options and weapons that to use in different ways. Devontae Smith, he's a fast guy. He can move all over the field. Jalen Reagor, looked great at that. The touchdown catch that he made was just a pure beauty too. They have more weapons than people realize. When you add in those running backs, Gainwell, I could not believe he fell so far in the draft because this guy, he looks to be a stud.
Yeah, and let's not forget up front. That's really where I think they dominated the trenches, and it wasn't just Brandon Graham who had a really really good game up front. I've always been a Brandon Graham fan, but the 2 defensive tackles in there in the middle, Hargrave and Ridgeway, combined for 3 sacks. They just owned the interior of the Falcons. I mean, Jalen Mayfield had a horrible debut in his first game in the NFL. And Hennessy was bad. McGarry was bad. It just was bad all the way across the line. The Eagles dominated the line of scrimmage again. We don't know how bad the Falcons are or how good the Eagles are just yet, but it was a stark contrast. Let's shift gears now to the next game on the docket for the Buccaneers, which is the Chicago Bears. Right? This is Chicago. Right? You got Matt Nagy in Chicago. They're coming to town. They're coming to town. Matt Nagy's coming to town. Chicago Bears. That's for you, Mark Cook. They're coming to town, fresh off of beating the Buccaneers in strikingly bad fashion last year, 20-19. That was the game where let's hold them up. Hold them up here. 4 down? Is this 4 down? Tom Brady, the old man, forgot what down it was. I can relate. I'm 49. I'm a couple years older than Brady. I forget shit all the time, so I can relate. But let's talk about the Bears because they should have beat the Bucs last year. The Bucs beat themselves, right? With the turnovers, with the penalties. Easily. I mean, they beat themselves. But the Bears still took advantage and had more points at the end of the game.
Yeah, the biggest matchup I'm looking for this is Mr. Wirfs versus Mr. Mack. And I know Wirfs has really circled this game. He wants to prove himself. And Mack, for as good as he is, he did pretty much nothing last night against the Bears. Only 1 tackle. The Rams O-line held up well against them. But I know Tristan Wirfs is going to be circling this game. Andy Dalton is just not an intimidating quarterback. Maybe we'll get Justin Fields by then, who came in and scored his first touchdown on a running play. I am really encouraged by the play of Fields throughout the preseason. And if he is in the game, I think it offers it's a completely different game plan than if they're playing Andy Dalton, right?
Yep. No doubt about it. No, I'm with you on that. And I think that's going to be a key matchup to watch through. And when you look at the game last night, okay, Akeem Hicks, he's one of my favorite defensive players. He's given the Bucs some fits in the past. The Bears, they can run the ball. I thought I'm not a huge David Montgomery fan, but he really impressed me with what he did last night, over 100 yards. It's just that they've got to play Justin Fields, right? Because Andy Dalton's not the answer. We saw Fields score his first touchdown last night, getting in there in a few snaps. I think by the time, JC, that the Bears come to town, We're not going to be talking about Andy Dalton. We're going to be talking about Justin Fields because the future is now. I think the Bears are going to lose a couple games, and they're going to be kind of forced to go into this game playing him, right? I mean, when you look at Fields, he was 2 of 2, got his feet wet, 10 yards as a passer, 3 yards rushing touchdown. But this Bears offense did not go anywhere, right? I mean, Montgomery had 108 yards, had a 41-yard run, so he showed some explosiveness. But Allen Robinson, who's their big play guy, 11 targets, 6 catches, 36 yards. And then you only saw 1 sack. Hicks and Robert Quinn up front shared a sack. And that's really it.
The thing about Robinson, too, all short, intermediate to really intermediate passes. They didn't use him to stretch the field at all. They didn't use him as a dynamic playmaker. It was very alarming to see. And I think, when you talk about Justin Fields versus Dalton, Fields offers so much more. And the reason they went with Dalton is because if Fields struggles, it's hard to go back to Dalton. But if Dalton struggles, you can put in Fields. And I think it's going to be I think we see Fields way sooner than this game.
Oh, I agree.
That's why they got him in.
I'm just saying by the time they come to Tampa, Fields is going to be the starter, right?
Oh yeah, that's why they got him in the game yesterday too.
Yeah.
They want to get him. Here's 2 pass attempts. Here's a rushing attempt. Let's see what you can do. Against a vaunted defensive line in the Rams, and hey, he scored in 2 for 2 of his first 2 NFL throws. So he's definitely going to be the starter here. And
well, you know what? On Saturday, JC, you want to know who went 2 for 2? I went 2 for 2. That's right. At my bookie, I went 2 for 2, and I bet on Iowa over Iowa State, and I bet on Michigan over Washington. Sorry, Jimmy Lake. But those were my 2 wins on Saturday. I actually had a very good weekend going all the way back to the Thursday night game because I took advantage of that lock of the season. Now, I didn't win on the Bucs Cowboys because I bet the point spread. And, of course, those damn Cowboys made it closer than necessary for me to win. But I had a very good weekend on my bookie. So the NFL is back in action. As you know, it's winning season at MyBookie with over $500,000 in contest prize money. Winning season makes the big games better and the victories even sweeter. Head to mybookie.ag and choose from a variety of boosts, contests, and promotions up for grabs, highlighted by the crown jewel of winning season, the famed MyBookie Super Contest. It only costs $10 to enter. I've already done it, so I want you to do it too. Pick 5 games against the spread each week. And each week you win a point. And each point you win gets you closer to the grand prize. If you miss out on week 1, don't even sweat it because there are entries that are still open. And all it takes is 1 solid week to get you right back in the mix. So don't take my word for it. Join now. Start your winning season with MyBookie today. In order to get you started, make your first deposit at mybookie.ag and use the promo code PEWTER to instantly receive double your deposit. That's double your money to double your winnings with every first deposit using the promo code PEWTER. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. And they got Kansas City and Baltimore tonight. Use the promo code PEWTER, double your money, and you can have fun betting on that. I went with, actually, that's not Kansas City, Baltimore. That's next week. But the Ravens will be playing the Raiders tonight. I actually am taking John Gruden and the Raiders.
Gruden.
Yeah. They got to win. They need to win. Gruden needs to win bad, and the Ravens are banged up. So and listen, they're a running team. They've already lost 3 out of their top 4 running backs before the season even starts to season-ending injuries.
Speaking of injuries and losing players, the Bucs looks like Sean Murphy Bunting will be going on an IR for the next 3 weeks, which leaves kind of a big hole. They did sign Pierre Desar, but the other player who's going to be going on IR, and Scott, you're going to have to help me because you're more familiar with this team, is long snapper Zach Triner. I don't know who the backup long snapper is for this team, but that is not a position to mess with.
No.
So who would be the backup?
That's some news. That's some breaking news right there. I don't know. They don't have one. They're going to have to sign one. And then, of course, the problem is with the COVID protocols, you're probably not going to get them in the building unless they knew about this injury. If this happened Thursday night, then they have been working on this, and you should get somebody in the building by tomorrow. But with COVID protocols, bringing somebody in, they got to pass. They have to have 2 negative COVID tests before they can get in the building, things like that. So
within 48 hours as well.
Yeah, so that makes it challenging, especially when you're trying to get what's known as the battery, right? The snapper, the holder, the kicker, that's your special teams battery. They all work in unison. You got to have the good snap, the good hold, and the good kick to get extra points and field goals. So that's a very interesting development. We got some breaking news on that. It's unfortunate. Do we know what type of injury it was?
I'm not sure. Let me double 1 second, and I can double check. Chris Cooper is back in the practice squad, though, so I mean that's something.
Right.
We know Sean Murphy-Bunting's the elbow injury. He's out the next 3 weeks.
Yeah,
So
I would not be surprised if Herb Miller comes up in the practice squad. I think they're bringing Pierre Desser in to become familiar with what they're doing defensively, but Herb Miller would also be an option to come up because he's had training camp at the Bucs and he's been in the system. So here we go. Brian Shaw setting up the table here. Packers straight up suck. Soft team. Okay, let's talk a little Packers and the Jameis Winston-led Saints. How about that? J-Boo wins. Got a huge win yesterday, not just for the Saints, but also for him. He had 5 touchdowns. Now, we've seen Jameis do this before. He had 5 touchdowns. Gosh, what was it, 2017 against the Eagles, I want to say? Maybe 2016. But he balled out, didn't make the mistake. He did have one interception. They got called back because of a very questionable grounding, roughing the passer penalty, which I can't stand. As a defensive-minded guy, I cannot stand roughing the passer penalties that are bogus like that. Now, if you're driving somebody into the ground, that's one thing. But and I'm not even saying this because it negates a Jameis pick. I'm just saying I can't stand him in general. Go back to the Joe Tryon roughing the passer penalty against Cincinnati in the first preseason game. That was awful.
Terrible.
Casey, you feel the same way.
Yeah, I can't, these, what do you call it, the sissification of football?
They're sissifying the game of football. Yes.
Football is a violent sport, all right?
It is.
I get you need to protect quarterbacks, but as you said, unless you are really driving or really it's a flagrant, attempt to hurt or injure or
right.
Like, come on here. I mean, some of these calls are just, what are we doing here? They hit hard.
You're ruining the game of football is what you're doing. Exactly. Listen, I get it. You want the offenses. You want the Arena Football League. I get it. That's what you got. You've got these high-scoring games with points are in the 30s and 40s. That's awesome. That's great.
But Brady said it.
Yeah, exactly. Defense is still fun to watch, right? It's still fun. Sacks, big hits, interceptions. I remember back in the day, they used to have these videos, right, where like you could get NFL's hardest hits. So these VHS tapes where they would compile all of the hardest hits, and you can buy those things. I mean, they promoted that. You can go back to the first couple Madden football games.
One of my favorite players of all time, Rodney Harrison. Him and Mr. Lynch. I mean,
John Lynch, Steve Atwater. I mean, you got some bone-crunching safeties there that just really couldn't be a factor in today's game, the way it's called. But I remember the first couple of Madden games where literally, if you hurt a player that like if you had a big hit, they would bring an ambulance on the field. I'm serious. Back in the day, they'd bring an ambulance on the field and cart you off. And now there's no way they would do that because they don't want to promote violence in the game. The game is violent. You're right, JC. But what was violent was the Saints defense. They destroyed Aaron Rodgers. And listen, I mean, we thought Aaron Rodgers played bad in Tampa, right? When the Bucs beat him as bad as they did in Week 5. At least Aaron Rodgers got on the board that game. They got up to a 10-0 start. That did not happen against the Saints yesterday. They outgained the Packers 322 to 229. That's not too bad. But the Saints were 5 of 10 on third down, and the Packers were 1 of 10 on third down. They could not convert a third down to save their life.
Crazy.
And Aaron Rodgers looked awful. And I'm going to give the Saints defense credit. I'm not just going to say Aaron Rodgers didn't show up. No, that's one guy. The Packers made everybody the Saints made everybody in the Packers look bad yesterday. And Winston looked really good. 14 of 20, 148 yards, 5 touchdowns. Wasn't asked to do a lot, right? He had a great running game yesterday, but no mistakes.
I would. So first of all, when it comes to the Saints defense, color me impressed because I was up here and you guys have all heard me preach about the Saints turnover on the defensive side of the ball, linebackers, edge rushers, cornerbacks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And for all that, they came out and they looked really good. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he looked a little disinterested. I'm not gonna lie. He looked a little disinterested, but still that was part of that defense, just being able to. I mean, look what the first game that happened with the Bucs. He came out midway through the third quarter when they were only down by, I think, 17 points. It just kind of called it. And it looks like once they start getting rolling, he just kind of called it. Take me out, put the young kid in, so let's see what he's got. But Jameis, Jameis looked all right. I'm not going to say he looked great. I'm not going to say he looked well. The 5 touchdowns, I mean, a couple of them, he had the one big play touchdown, but a couple of them were a little dink-dunk, a little pop pass over to Alvin Kamara.
Right.
We'll see. I didn't think that the Packers defense was great. They've got a couple good linebackers, Sedarius Smith and obviously Jair Alexander, one of the best young cornerbacks in the league. Savage, who would have had the pick but got called back. He's a pretty good safety too. But it's Jameis. I need to see more. But,
listen. I got killed on Twitter today for leading off with the pure PR Bucks Money mailbag, right? With picture of Jameis and all that. Listen, I had a question and I answered it. I thought it was ridiculous. Will the Bucks regret letting Winston go? No, of course not. That's what I said in the column. I said, of course not. I mean, they won a Super Bowl last year. Oh, and by the way, his replacement, Tom Brady, 40 touchdowns to set a franchise record. And the guy was the Super Bowl MVP, right? So I think if you would have asked any Buccaneer fan, hey, would you put up with 13 years of losing to win another Super Bowl? They probably would say yes, because there are plenty of NFL franchises that don't have one. The Buccaneers now have 2. They're 2 for 2 in the Super Bowl race in the NFC South. They're ahead of the Saints, who are 1 for 1. The Falcons are 0 for 2. The Panthers are 0 for 2. So you take Super Bowls anytime you can get them. Now, will Jameis Winston haunt the Buccaneers if he ends up staying in New Orleans for 10 years? Well, maybe if he ends up beating the Bucs on a regular basis, winning multiple Super Bowls. But right here, right now, that's all you can focus on is the present. Tomorrow never comes. But right here, right now, today, the way I look at it, the Buccaneers still have the best quarterback in the league in Tom Brady, a guy who will challenge for the NFL MVP this year and who's been there, done that, and who won a Super Bowl last year. You can't argue with that. It was the right decision last year to let go of Jameis Winston and bring in Tom Brady. And if he succeeds in New Orleans, he does. But, JC, he had 5 years. 5 years to stop throwing interceptions. To stop. That was his biggest crime coming into this league, was he turned the ball over. He had 3 head coaches, Lovie Smith, Dirk Cutter, and the quarterback whisperer, Bruce Arians, who told him, don't turn the ball over. And what did he do in his contract year, his first year with the quarterback whisperer? He turned it over more than 30 times, 30 interceptions. Okay.
5 fumbles too? And then I think I think his adjusted turnovers or balls that were dropped was it would have been like 43 turnovers total. It's just, he's got talent. There's no question he's got talent. It's just I
like Jameis personally. I think he's a great guy. I'm rooting for Jameis, not because he's a saint. I'm just rooting for Jameis because he's a good guy. I've gotten to know him. I've been to his football camps. I mean, he's a really good guy. I hope he can live up to the potential because listen, the Bucs invested the first overall pick in him for a reason. He has talent. It's just those interceptions and the turnovers have just killed his career.
Not throwing the ball away, not taking the sack, and multiple things.
If Sean Payton can be the guy to turn him around, then okay, great. That's great for Jameis. Maybe not so good for the Bucs down the road. We'll have to see. But yesterday was his day. 5 touchdowns. We'll see. That's 1 game out of 17. So let's not give him the NFL MVP just yet. But he had some help, right? Alvin Kamara, 83 yards, a touchdown catch. And listen, Jameis will give the Saints the downfield element that they've not had for the last couple of years with Drew Brees, who just didn't have the arm to push it downfield.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But the one thing about that, and we kind of saw a little bit with Deontay Harris. Do they have the playmakers?
Yeah,
Is the biggest question for him to get the ball down the field.
right,
He's not throwing to a Chris Godwin. He's not throwing to a Mike Evans. He's not throwing to a Rashad Perriman for that matter.
right.
He's throwing to really guys that aren't that good, borderline NFL players right now. And he'll get Michael Thomas back, but we all know Michael Thomas has never been a deep route type of guy. He's been an
Yeah,
underneath. He's called Slant Boy for a reason, not just because Bucs fans hate the guy, but
right.
he's going. Jameis should have a great season. And I mean, the LASIK eye surgery went well for him. A year under Peyton and Breeze should really help. And Peyton's a really good coach. Not to say
Right.
that Arians isn't or anyone else isn't, but it's still. I think the reason why it's getting so much attention because it was against Aaron Rodgers as well. I tell you though, I had to turn my Twitter timeline. I didn't go to it all. Bucs fans were all in a tizzy. You got this one corner who are Jameis stands and Jameis forever freaking out, and the other one that are like more rational headed say we already got a Super Bowl out of it.
Yeah.
But
Well, listen,
I'm
the
worried about
argument's going to
Kamara.
go on. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The other thing too is the Saints defense, right? Because they couldn't afford to keep Trey Hendrickson, who was their leading sacker last year. You saw Davenport, the former first-round pick, he had a sack. Passanio had a sack, the newcomer there. So they've retooled that defensive front, and it looks pretty good, right? They really kind of reshuffled the deck there. Cam Jordan's still Cam Jordan, but Malcolm Brown's gone. Hendricks is gone. Sheldon Rankins is gone.
I was
So
going to say the defensive tackle's out for the first 6 games suspension.
Yeah.
And Davenport is now injured with a pectoral muscle. He's out for the next couple of games.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Well, at the same time, they did a number, right? 3 takeaways, held the Packers to 43 yards rushing. Aaron Rodgers, 133 yards. Got picked off twice. Williams, free safety, got 1. Paulson Adebo got the other. So, it was a good showing. We know what happened to the Bucs when they lost 38-3 to the Saints. Didn't matter. Maybe the Packers will show the same type of resolve. And really, again, the 38-3 victory for the Saints didn't really matter because they weren't able to do anything with it once the playoffs came and the Bucs got the rematch. So, that's kind of the quick thumbnail sketch look at the initial impressions that we've seen from the Bucs' upcoming opponents. I hope you enjoyed that. One thing that you are going to enjoy, JC, is Spotify Green Room. You're a big fan of Spotify Green Room, where you can talk music, sports, and culture live, and especially when you get on there and talk Bucs football, right?
Yeah, definitely check out Spotify Green Room. Tap in. There's weekly shows, watch parties. We can talk about the sports that are going on live there. Fantasy shows. Check out Max Weezy in the morning at 10:30 a.m. He's got a wide variety of topics. Today was NFL Hot Takes Week 1, so that was good to talk about. Plus, we'll have some Pewter Report rooms going on there. Make sure you go on there, find Pewter Report in the search, follow us, turn the notifications on. Anytime that we go live, you guys can come in and talk, join the conversation, voice to voice. No, you don't have to, there's still a chat feature too, but if you want to come up and ask me a question, John, Matt, Scott, whoever's on there at the time, ask us a question and we'll get right into it. And definitely check it out because audio-based platforms are becoming the new way. We know about some of the other ones that have been out for a while. Well, Spotify Green Room, Purchase Locker Room. If you've been around, and Spotify is a national brand, and they're going to be doing some great things and having some great guests and really high-profile artists, athletes, and other things on there. So definitely check out Spotify Green Room at the App Store or the Google Play Store. Make
sure that you check out our Pewter Report TV YouTube channel and hit the like button on our videos. Also subscribe to that channel and make sure you hit notifications. That when we go live with our next Pewter Report podcast, which will be tomorrow at 4 o'clock, we're going to have John Ledyard on with Matt Matera. And then John and I will kind of dive even deeper into the Bucs-Falcons analysis that Matt and John will start tomorrow on Wednesday. And we'll have a really kind of deep dive pregame show there that'll get us through the midweek. And then John will have a guest on Thursday for the Pewter Report podcast wrap up. And then, of course, on Sunday, 3 o'clock, we'll have Pewter pregame with the Pewter game day, followed by that at 4 o'clock. So for JC Allen, I'm Scott Reynolds. It's been a lot of fun talking Bucs football with you here on this Victory Monday, looking at the Bucs' next opponents. Next up, the Atlanta Falcons. So for JC, I'm Scott saying see you next time, and out.